Hello, this is Lisa Wade, and I am so grateful that you've joined us for another episode of Dirt Road Divinity, the scenic route of the soul. Today, I am so excited to be talking with Dale Kershner. Dale has an incredible background, nearly 4 decades of helping both companies, but also individuals really strive toward meeting their highest potential and bringing out the true power within themselves. Dale is also the author of the upcoming book, Practical Happiness. And I am so excited to jump into both topics. So Dale, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Yeah, chirpy. Apparently, I'm feeling pretty perky.
Okay, good.
Doing
Good.
good. Yeah,
Perky's good. Right?
sun is shining, and that
Yes,
that makes me incredibly happy.
that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Now, it seems that you are a person, from what I've been able to gather from our past conversations,
Yeah.
who believes deeply in the inner potential of each one of us to tap into some pretty incredible gifts, and that sometimes we're not even aware of that.
Right.
How do you help people become aware?
Okay, so we start with a dichotomy that is human corporal form and higher being. Since we live both of those existences simultaneously when we've chosen to take on a human form and walk a pathway through this life on this planet. So is all I do with people to teach them how to read minds, to teach them how to heal energetically, to teach them how just to tap into their own energy and manage it, control it, have it be what they want to put out. Um, the first thing we do is get them aware of the fact that they're not just confined by the edges of their skin,
Mm.
and that they're emitting massive quantities of energy constantly, and it's probably more useful if they emit it in a way that they so choose. So reading somebody or tapping into somebody else's thoughts is as simple as letting your energetic being connect with their energetic being, and just listening intently. It usually takes a minute to practice that and understand it at the level that it starts to work. But there's steps to it. We ease into it by just training them how to listen, and ultimately train them how to hear, what's not being said, but what's there.
Mm. Context in between the lines.
Always, right? They talk about nonverbal communication, and they stop with body language. And it's
Mm.
like, why stop there? There's so much more.
The really good stuff is the stuff
Exactly. It's
happening in
out
the
here.
energetic fields.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I'm curious. I'm guessing, and I could very well be wrong, but I'm guessing that you weren't born knowing these things, that your journey to kind of come to this place maybe wasn't a super, direct path. What's
I
your
didn't
path like?
fall out doing this. Well, let's see. Okay, first, I think everybody's born with
Mm.
these capabilities, and we just have them beat out of us over time. Life teaches us that, let's see, I remember being told, no, 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 you can't express yourself that much in front of people because, you'll freak them out. Or you can't run naked through the front room when you have guests because that's not okay, or
Darn it.
whatever. Well, I know, right? So yes, I think everybody's born with the innate capability, because I think right as we're born, we haven't yet forgotten who we really are. That comes later. So yes, I was born with the capabilities, much like everybody else on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Then I, like most people, got them trained out of me over the years. Um, Knew that I could see dead people. At first, of course, I didn't know they were dead people. They were just other people that didn't look the same as the people who were alive. And And then after a while, that went away too, because as soon as I told enough people about it, then of course, that's not okay in society either. So probably by my adolescence, that was mostly gone, but I realized I could switch it on when I wanted to.
Mm.
Then I dove into life. And so my 20s and 30s and 40s were all about building massive amounts of wealth, going all over the planet, helping companies do the same thing. Always an ethos coming out of me that there was like social justice was massively important to me always. And that was the thread that kept everything going. But
Mm.
it wasn't until my mid 40s that I met this lesbian couple in Colorado. And they simultaneously turned to me when we were having dinner or something one time and said, "Oh, you're a shaman." And I said, "Oh, well,
Oh.
that's awesome. What's that mean?" And they proceeded to explain it to me. And that started my, I asked them, "Well, how do you be a shaman?" Said, "Well, go do it. And however you end up doing it is how you be a shaman."
Mm.
And how do you read people's minds? How do you talk to their spirit guides? How do you, all those questions was answered with, "Well, you go do it and come back and tell me what you did."
Oh.
So that's where it all opened up and started happening again. And then there was a second coming out when I realized that it was no longer appropriate to apologize or pretend about that just because there was a bunch of ignorant people in the world who didn't understand
Mm.
what I was talking about. And it became a part of my coaching and business practice and even a part of the book. Probably right around my 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And I just stopped. Somebody would ask me a question and I would answer it truthfully rather than filter it so that it wouldn't freak them out.
Thank you for number one, for making that transition for yourself, but
Yeah.
thank you for bringing that up. That's something that I'll admit I've struggled with, in terms of either first putting the muzzle on and just not saying anything, or,
Right.
I mean, I live in rural Oklahoma, and I always felt like, ooh,
Right.
the rural Oklahoma thing, I can't talk about this stuff here.
Yeah.
But then I found that I was almost prefacing every meaningful conversation with, this might sound crazy, but.
Right.
And when I decided to just stop doing both of those things,
Mm-hmm.
there was a liberation that was wild, just in terms of, oh, I get to be me now. And I think you hit it about not apologizing.
And it was over there with them too, because when I stopped apologizing and it was just who I am,
Mhm.
they were like, "Oh, well, yeah, of course, I understand. Yeah, I don't know that I can do that, but it's cool that you can."
Yes. And that's, yes, absolutely. That's one
Yeah.
thing that I have found, is that it's almost like it almost gives people permission then to
Mm-hmm.
go, "Phew, okay, you can be
Yeah.
you and I can be me, and
Right.
that's cool."
Yeah.
And all of the angst that I thought might go along with just
Right.
being me hasn't materialized.
Right.
I mean, it's
No, I
just,
thought I would lose clients. I thought, I would, freak people out, or they, "Yeah, no, that's great. See ya," or whatever. Right. And none of that happened. I had CEOs asking me to train their 400 employees on how to manage their energy before they came into the workplace.
I love that.
Yeah, it was great. It was
And when
great.
CEOs start understanding the idea that our energy is one of our biggest leadership assets, and
Oh
to
my
be
God.
able to manage that in an effective way,
Yep.
that's a game changer.
Yeah, a total changer. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of your book, Practical
Yeah.
Happiness,
Yeah.
uh, th- we're living in a wild time. Shit show is the way I
Yes.
typically
Yeah.
kind of
It's
describe it. Some
it's
people
not an
see it
inappropriate way.
as a real opportunity. Others,
It is.
feel, really compressed by it. I
Right.
love the fact that you see it as an opportunity.
Yeah.
And are there tidbits in the book or ideas that you can share
Oh
that,
yeah.
especially about how to pursue practical happiness when it seems that the crap's hitting the fan?
Right. Um, okay. So this is part of the book, and it's a lot about me.
Hmm.
Um, everything's an opportunity. I
Mm.
started writing the book when I was laying in a hospital bed after my first 3 heart attacks and having died the first time.
Whoa.
And so it occurred to me that, okay, so I was not taken out for a particular reason. And perhaps that reason is because I have something of value to give to other people. And so, I had my laptop with me and started typing in there. And I thought, okay, well, what would be the most challenging thing for me to accomplish, given that I've got tubes and wires hanging off of me, and someone comes in every 4 hours, to make sure that I'm all right but not sleeping. Um, and so I started writing the book, and it seemed happiness was the thing that everybody was seeking. I want a bigger house, so I'll be happy. I want a boat, so I can be happy. I want a fancy car, so girls will find me attractive and I'll be happy. Or stacks and stacks of money, so I don't have to worry about paying the bills, and then I'll be happy. And of course, what it always circled around to was happiness. So I started writing the book. Um, I dedicated it to my cardiologist who kept me alive long enough to actually write the book.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It worked out for me. Um, so a couple of the things, one of the major premise of the book, a spoiler alert or whatever, still buy it. But the spoiler alert of the book is we make up our own emotions.
Mm.
We're mostly not conscious that we are doing it. We started when we were an infant, sorry, and mom said no to something for the very first time ever, and we learned that the world isn't a perfectly safe place in that moment, and it could have been as simple as I want ice cream, no, and there goes our life.
But I
So we
really want ice cream. Yeah.
I know, right? And we made up because that was the first time mom told us no for anything. And it all of a sudden meant, well, mom doesn't love us the way we thought she did. It's not safe in the world. What's this no concept? Take it however you want to take it. There's, billions of us, and there's billions of ways to take that situation and turn it into something. So then we go through life and we build evidence for our initial premise that we came up with when we were 5 years old. And we support our premise over and over and over again with hundreds of thousands of additional occurrences that support the world's not safe.
Mm.
So since we started back then making up our responses to everything, so emotional, action, our ways of being, everything got made up coming out of that event. So if that's the case, and then we study neuroplasticity, we look at quantum mechanics and some other um, physical properties, we realize that we can retrain our brains. We've been doing it from birth, and we can still do it right up until the last breath we take.
Mm.
So that being the case, then is all we have to do is develop a process to train our brain into new ways of being, new emotional responses, whatever it is that we want to alter. And there's some very simple processes to it. It's in the book. And and it really is just a repetitive process that you take on. It involves 3 phases. Yeah, the first phase is to notice, the second phase is to interrupt, and the third phase is to create.
Mm.
So with those 3 things, you can take any behavior, any emotion, any way of being about, let's say, pandemics or heart attacks or whatever, and give yourself a new outcome and train your brain to actually remap itself. And there are physical changes that happen because your neurons now fire down different pathways when you take this on and retrain yourself.
I love that. And that 3-step process, what it's bringing up for me is a really practical example of a way that if I apply your 3 steps, a way
Right.
that I found really helpful. Um, there was a while back I needed to bring my dad to live nearby, and
Oh,
dad and I, not exactly the most peaceful relationship at the time. So I
yep,
had some serious angst about this. And what I found is that every time I encountered myself wanting to judge him, so becoming aware of wanting to
yep,
judge, and there was plenty, trust me, there was there was plenty there. I used that instead almost as a trigger, or I called it an invitation to love him more, to
sure,
find a way to love more. And
perfect.
whether it was for, you know, I'd like to say that it was for him, but it really wasn't. That was how I could keep my sanity
Yeah,
and have, um, well, and just to realize I have a choice in this. I can
yep,
either be pissed off or I can come from a place of love.
right,
And so awareness, the trigger kind
yep.
of, what did you call it? Did you call it a trigger?
Noticed,
Notice,
interrupt,
interrupt. That's
create.
it. Yeah.
Yep, and
Notice, interrupt, create.
yep.
Love that. Notice, interrupt, and create. Yeah.
And there's more effective ways to do that. And I set people up to on 21-day or 7-day cycles so that they
Mm.
take each step as it comes. And some of my own behaviors took me 2 years to modify. But you mentioned judgment. I have a chapter on judgment because it's
Uh,
not useful,
yeah. Yeah.
right? Judging which is the better stereo to purchase may be useful, might be frivolous too, but judgment of others, judgment of yourself rarely contributes anything of value.
Thank
And
you.
then I have a chapter on gossip. I have a chapter on complaining. Essentially, I give you the tools to be happy or be whatever you want to be anytime you want to do that. And then I give you all the things that happen in your life and you've created in your life that make that more challenging.
Mm. So what do you say to people that say things like, oh, you say happiness is a choice? Well, that's real fine and dandy, but you haven't lived in my shoes and you don't know all the crap that I'm dealing with.
Right?
Is
What
it the
do I
same for
say?
everyone?
Yeah, usually I say, well, see there, you're making that up right now. Um, Everybody has, when I led seminars, there was this period in the seminar where we would ask people to come up to the microphone and share. And it was, although we didn't title that and they weren't aware of it all the time, it was, I've had a worse life than you moment.
Yeah.
And they'd come up to the microphone and they would talk about, oh my God, I was abused when I was 10-year-old by my uncle. Another one was beat, frequently, every time their dad got drunk or whatever it was. They all had and essentially the game that was being played without their awareness was, my life's worse than yours.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow you win a prize if you win that game. I'm not sure what the prize is, a miserable life maybe. um, but everybody would play it until one guy came up to the mic and he shared that, okay, he was 12 years, I'll make this quick. He's 12 years old. He's sitting in the front room watching TV with his mom while his dad's getting drunk in the kitchen. This particular time, dad comes walking out of the kitchen. He's carrying a shotgun. He brings it up, shoots mom in the chest with both barrels.
Whoa.
Yeah. So he was 12 years old. He made up he's not safe around women.
Huh. Okay.
Right? So he went through this whole story. We listened to it, and I sent him back into the audience and looked at everybody and I said, okay, does he win? Is that the worst I've had a horrible childhood story you've ever heard? And so I just relate that to them. I said, I don't care what your childhood is. I don't care what your life has been. You've made it that way. Whether you're aware of it or not, you've made it that way. There are just as many wildly successful, happy people who had a miserable childhood as there are that had a wonderful childhood. So it's what you make of it. It has nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah.
And why would you want to be a victim of your circumstances rather than be in the driver's seat of what your life looks like?
Yeah. Mm. Thank you.
So I say stuff like that.
You're a no bullshit kind of guy. That's one of the things I really appreciate about you, because you don't beat around a bush, and you
Uh,
don't you don't allow people, it seems, to wallow in their own self-created stuff when you can see more potential there.
Oh, and it's always there, right?
Yeah.
If they just stop whining long enough, they'll see it too.
Now, it sounds like you've had your own stack of crap to get
Oh
through.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
3 heart
absolutely.
attacks, dying,
Yep.
chronic pain,
Yeah.
just a whole
My
bunch of
liver's
stuff.
giving out. Yeah, all sorts of things. But it's just the circumstances of my existence. I believe that the heart attacks came along to slap me hard enough so that I would focus intensely on making the difference I came here to
Mm,
make in the first place. So here I am. It's part of why you and I are talking right now. It's because I don't have time. There comes the directness, but I don't have time. I don't have time to listen to somebody bellyache for a while before we actually make a difference for them. So I tell
mhm.
my clients on the phone, I said, look, if you want to hire someone to listen to you whine every week, then great. Go find a friend of yours. You do that with them already. They won't charge you money and you can get that accomplished. I said, but if you want to change your world, make your life an incredible thing because you say so, then we can talk. I said, if you ever want to call me and whine on the phone, that's fine. We'll take 5 minutes. You whine your life away, and then we'll go to work and get something done.
Perfect. The fact that you're upfront about that, I'll bet probably means you don't have to say, "Oops, stop," very often
Right.
because they know.
Hardly ever.
Yeah.
They actually about 20 seconds into it, they go, oh, wait, I'm not supposed to whine. I said, no, I never said you're not supposed to whine. I said, it's not productive. So let's just, cut it short.
hmm Here's your time limit.
Yep.
Let's go. That
Right.
actually, I think that's beautiful. If we could do that with our own inner dialogue, and
Right.
say, okay, for the next 30 seconds, be as cranky and negative and whatever you want to be, and then turn that
Yep.
crap around. You
Yep.
know?
I
That
did it right after my partner died.
mm,
He died of cancer. This is like 12 years ago or something.
mhm,
And while I allowed myself to be devastated, I quickly decided that it wasn't productive. So I
mhm,
would choose my times to be devastated and choose when and for how long.
mhm.
And after I did that for a little while, I realized what a game I was playing with myself because, well, if I could control those parameters, I could control any of it. And I just chose not to do it anymore.
Wow. That's a powerful recognition. I lost my husband last year, and I
Mm.
I realized it wasn't until this year and all of the tumultuous energies that have been flowing about that I found myself sinking into a deep grief
Yep.
for humanity
Oh,
and
sure.
didn't realize that I actually had never really let myself grieve the
Right.
passing of my husband. And
Yep.
so that all came up then too. And it's like, holy crap, could have knocked me over.
Oh, could have. Totally.
And when I tapped in to my own inner wisdom to say, okay, what do I need here? The answer I got seemed so frivolous but so relevant, which
I
was
love it.
just go find your joy. Go
Right.
find joy.
Yeah.
And
Why
whew,
not? Yeah.
yeah, that's a
Yep.
game changer. So how do you encourage? I mean, to me, joy and happiness kind of go together.
Sure.
With grief, with just the just chaos, the chaotic energy we see in the world right now,
Yep.
especially given this, how do you encourage people to find that joy, to find that happiness? Is it always the same?
It's not.
Okay.
Um, First of all, everybody has different degrees of they say.
Mm,
Um, the they out there that says, okay, you have to grieve a certain way, you have to do it in steps and do it, for this period of time, and then you've successfully grieved so you can move on. Or the ones that they say, you can't love another till you love yourself, or whatever they starts with they say, is complete and utter bullshit. Um,
thank you.
they don't exist. I've never found them. There's not like a country somewhere where they sit around and then every minute and a half they come up with oh, we say X, and then that goes out into the world and creates society as a whole, and we move on. Um, so everybody's so willing to accept what they say, but nobody can show me who they are or why they're right.
Mm.
Um, And I don't believe in right and wrong anyway.
Mhm.
So it's okay, well, and what they say, is that workable for you or is it not? How's your life going? Because if it's not going the way you would like it to, then what they say is kind of messing you up. So I start getting, it's always getting the individual to realize the choices that they're making and that they are choices. And then we go down, okay, there are alternatives. You get to say even what the alternatives are. And do you want those alternatives, or do you want to, um, you know, hang with your humanness and wallow in it for a while? Either answer is correct, but know that it's a conscious choice, make the conscious choice, and then go do it.
Mm.
They can do anything they want.
So one thing that intrigued me recently was
Hmm.
you made a reference to being in chronic pain.
Sure.
And that was something I've never heard you complain about. You just referenced it, but it,
Yeah,
it piqued my curiosity
sure.
because, my dad again, has dealt with chronic pain for decades, and it led to some other challenges. But
Hmm.
it's as if he let that define his life in a lot of
Sure.
ways.
Of course.
And it seems that you haven't, and have taken more natural approaches or more empowered approaches
Hmm.
to deal with that. Is there any advice or guidance you might have for people who are facing pain of the physical,
Yep.
variety, about how to take control of that in some way? You know,
One thing I noticed, um, it's been, probably a decade and a half or something that I've had random shooting pains that go through my body. And sometimes they just constantly are there, and sometimes they just pop in and shoot lightning down my leg or across my shoulder or whatever, and then go away. Um, I noticed that when I was quiet and like just reading a book or just doing one task, that they always happened more often.
hmm,
And then when I started to think about it, because I wanted to do something about that, I thought, well, wait a second. They're probably happening whenever they're happening. I'm not impacted by it when I'm completely focused on something. And of course, the thing I focus on the most is my conversations with people when I'm coaching or when I'm doing something like that, because they get 100% of my attention. So I noticed that every time I was on the phone, I never had a pain. I never was wincing. Nobody could hear that anything was going on the other end. And I realized that I, and I take that space very sacredly.
mhm,
It's, I've set my office up so that it deadens the sound so there's no echoes. I use this particular headset because it kills sound, or environmental sound out here, not in my ear, but in my microphone, so
mhm,
that they don't hear the dogs barking or anything else that's going
mhm,
on. So because I treat that sacred, and before every time I call, I take the 5 minutes before they're going to ring in and I connect with them energetically.
mhm,
And that's a very physical thing for me. There's a channel of white light that comes out of the center of my chest and goes out wherever they are in the world and connects with the center of their chest. And that's how it occurs for me visually. So whenever I'm doing that, pain never happens, or it happens and I don't notice it. So anytime pain happens, if we're looking at the opposite direction, I just get super present to something. If it's eating cereal, then I get ultra present to eating cereal. If I'm walking, I get massively present to walking. And I've noticed, like, I used to do this thing in the seminars where, people from sitting in the chair for a weekend and so forth would, somebody or several people in the audience would always have a headache.
yeah.
And so I'd say, okay, well, let's fix your headaches before we move on. And so all I would do is walk them through a guided focusing so that they would pay attention to one very precise thing. And quite frankly, what I used was their headaches. So I had them go in and see their headache and feel it, and what color would they make it be, and and I'd spend 10 minutes getting them ultra present to their headache. And then I'd bring them back to the room, and then I'd say, okay, are we ready to move on with the seminar? And to a person, nobody had a headache anymore. Those are self-induced anyway, so we just got to walk through that and get it out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So I focus on the things that matter to me in order to not feel pain. And then when I do feel pain, I just acknowledge it. I don't resist it.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. It's been with me for a long time, so I'm used to the way it feels. And I express gratitude for it, for reminding me of my humanness, and
Mm.
reminding me that I occupy a meat sack, and that every once in a while this is the way meat sacks feel. So what is there for me to do about that?
Yep. This is the way meat sex feel every once in a while. I love that.
Right.
And that's at its very root, that is what it is. And the
It is.
chance to find gratitude there is amazing. Um, there's kind of three things with our time
Okay.
that's left that I'd love to jump
Okay, great.
into.
Sure.
And I'll just lay the three out really fast.
Okay.
One, I want to go back to our conversation about around being asked, oh, you're a shaman. So,
Okay.
and then secondly, the big, so what do you believe question?
Right.
And then finally, how people can support your upcoming book. So those are
Okay.
the three I want to hit before
Okay.
we get done. But the first one, I think what got me with, as you were describing how you learned
Right.
that you were a shaman and how to become, or how to be in your
Right.
way. The message I keep getting for myself is clarity will come through action.
Sure.
Had been a left brain driven person for so long, and I thought I had to know all the things before I
That's
could do
something
the
they
things.
say, by the way,
Yeah, exactly.
that left brain
And
does this.
I, and that had to be turned on its head.
Right.
It is in doing that I
Mhm.
understand or find clarity. Is that normal? I mean, is that just
Yeah.
how it
Is
works
that
for
normal?
everyone, or just some of us, or
Yeah. Well, first off, there is no
no
normal.
normal?
Yeah. And that's the wonderful thing. If it was all normal, I mean, we all are the same. And I'll get into that in a second,
Mm-hmm.
in your second question. Um, um, when they came to me and said I was a shaman, it meant nothing, because I had heard of shaman. I have some Native American roots, and so in that context, I understood the term. But when they defined it to me, it has a simple definition rather than the healer of the tribe, or the wise men of the tribe, or whatever it is. The simple definition is that a shaman is an individual who walks in both the human and the spirit world simultaneously.
Oh,
So they don't have to do something to connect to the other side. They don't have to invoke the directions and smudge themselves and spin 3 times or whatever to be able to communicate with someone's spirit guides.
mm.
Mostly, and this is the plus and minus of it, people's spirit guides are talking to me constantly, and mostly they won't shut up. In restaurants, somebody will scream out to me, no, no, this one, tell him this. And so I generally do. Um, so so I could be with that, even though I disbelieved it at first. I could be with that definition because it didn't define anything about how I needed to act,
Mm.
steps I needed to take, or whatever. Now I did start to take the actions of reading people, communicating with their spirit guides, healing them energetically, all the different aspects of energy living. Um, but just to try them out and see what would happen. Um, and I tried them all out. They all happened. And so It didn't I didn't have to stop being whatever I wanted to be that. I just realized that I was that and incorporated it into everything I did, because why not? It makes me a better coach, and I like that.
Yeah.
So let's see. So that's the answer to that. Question 2 was the biggie question.
The biggie one. What do
Okay.
you, yeah, the
What do
big,
I believe?
yeah.
I don't believe in a deity. I don't. Everybody's allowed to believe whatever they believe.
Mhm.
Now, a lot of people believe what they believe as a weapon against everybody else, and
Mhm.
that's unfortunate, but they do that. I I believe that, as I've alluded to further, our natural state, when the body shuffles off, our natural state is pure energy,
Mhm.
and that energy exists without human constraints. So that means there's no limitation about time. There's no limitation about space. There's no edges. And that's tough to grasp speaking from a human brain, but that's who I think we really are. I'll find out, soon enough. We all will. But I got plenty of evidence for it. I've got scientific proofs, because I have to go and I have to validate everything that I end up making my belief structure. So if you want to call the cosmic consciousness that defines us all, and you want to call it God, or you want to call it hamburger, I don't care. Either one's fine. I think more people choose to call it God than not.
Mhm.
So that's fine. And I coach a lot of devout Christians, evangelicals, Muslims. It doesn't impede. As a matter of fact, they get a better understanding of their belief structure during coaching with me. So great.
See that?
Believe whatever makes you happy and makes you a better person. If it does those things, then great. That's a good belief. Keep that one. But I think that when our bodies cease to function and start to decay, we revert to either the dimension, the place, I can only use human words to describe it, but we revert to our natural state, which is
Mhm.
energy.
Mhm.
In that state, we are everybody, and everybody is us. You can't be limitless and not be part of everybody. Just doesn't work.
Mhm.
So so that's who we become. Now there is a there's a if you combine all of that limitless energy and you direct it toward anything, it can you want to use terms like changes the world, but the world is an illusion too. So um, it can be and do whatever it wants. For instance, since I think it gets bored with bliss, happiness, gratitude, and love, um, it had to invent this game, and the game is meat sack. And we get to, when we're there, determine whether or not we want to occupy a meat sack for a limited period of time and go learn the things that we can't know as perfect beings. So
Mm.
we come here to learn about pain. We come here to learn about loss. We come here to learn about hatred, injustice, all of these things, because we can't know them any other way. So we invented this game. It has a beginning, an end, and a middle. You get to score it because you get to determine before you come here the intention of your coming here.
Yep.
And lots of us walk through the entire process ignoring the fact that we had a purpose. Some of us find it, some of us don't. You get to the end of the game ends, you revert back, and then you get, oh, I won my game or I lost my game. Okay, great. You want to play again? Sure. And that's the short version of my belief about all of it.
Love it. Yeah. Thank you.
Now,
Thank
oh,
you.
the book.
Mhm.
um, the book is right now being promoted through Indiegogo. If you go to Indiegogo and you put in search term practical happiness, the book comes up. Um, I'm there raising funds to publish it, develop an e-learning site based on the book, and also something I call Joy Society, which is a social media environment that people can join. There's no cost to it or whatever. And you can support each other in the pursuit of happiness.
Mm.
I just coined that. Nobody's ever used that before. Um, or just seeking joy or sharing your experiences with other people or whatever. But the site's going to be created, the e-learning site's going to be created, and the book will publish regardless of if the funding site makes more money. And I recognize right now people are not necessarily thinking about giving money away. So the site's there. It's the best possible way if you want to be the first recipient of a copy of the book and you want a signed copy. That's the best way to get it, because that's where the first printing will go, is to the people who support it on that site.
Perfect. I will make sure to include that direct link in the information along. Do you mind if I include your website address as well?
Oh,
So
feel
if
free.
people
I
feel
don't pay much attention to it, but they can go there. Yeah.
okay. If someone did want to connect with you and to learn more about, it seems you really help people get kind of the hell out of their own way
That's
in a
all
lot
I
of
do.
ways.
That's all I ever do.
And
Yep.
there's an awful lot of us who could use someone that's no nonsense, you know. Here I'm not
Yep.
going to I'm not going to coddle your hurdles that you're creating for yourself,
Right.
but let's just bust through them.
Right.
What is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
The best way is to go to my site, and there's a contact page, and you just put your information in there with your email, and it comes directly to my desktop, and that way I can get back in touch with you.
Okay.
Any other way gets me way too much traffic, and I can't handle it all. So.
Gotcha. I so appreciate your time and your
Oh,
insights.
what an opportunity. I love doing this. This is the purpose of my life, is to have conversations like this. So for it to be with you, with someone I care about, and to be with all your followers who are obviously tuned into something, then yeah, it's great. This is a joy of my life.
Thank you so much. And I'm genuinely grateful that you shared with us. And so folks out there who are listening or watching to Dirt Road Divinity, please do reach out to Dale, support the book, support the process of learning more about practical happiness, even in nutty times, and support yourself in doing that. And until next week, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again.